So I want to talk a little bit about my career path and how unexpected it was, and along the way some things that I've learned that I think are pretty simple and can help you as you start your career. So when I was in college, if you told me that I'd be standing on this stage as a CFO of a clearing bank, I would have said, what the hell is a clearing bank? I was a biomedical engineer, so I kind of go to Donnie's numbers that you don't end up where you start. I went through and I did all my core math and science classes, and I really enjoyed those. But then I started getting into the core engineering, and I absolutely hated it. I went to my counselor. I said, I want to go to business. He said, okay, we can do that, but you got to spend an extra 2 years in college. If you could guess it, my parents said, there's no way you're spending an extra 2 years in college unless you want to pay. Well, I don't want to pay $50,000 at that time. So I decided to finish. Luckily for me, when I was graduating, it was the dot-com era, and the job market was really strong. People were getting big signing bonuses. You kind of could cross-pollinate pretty easily. So I got out, and I got a job right away with Sal Bank in a commercial lending rotation program. So the program was expected to start in October. Unfortunately, that September, we had one of the biggest events in the world, 9/11. It changed many people's lives way more dramatically than mine, but it did change my career path and where I ended up. So at that point, I got a call from the bank a week later that they canceled the program. So now it's, September, I got no job. I caddied for the summer and had a great last summer of what I thought was my life. And unfortunately, we don't live in Florida, so that came to an end. Well, I had a good buddy who traded on the grain floor. And he said, hey, if you want a job while you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do, come on down, I'll introduce you to some people. So one morning in October, I walked down to the Board of Trade. I met him. He had his green jacket on, his badge. He takes me up to the grain floor. Never been on an exchange floor. I didn't even know what a future contract was. So I get up there. I'm looking around the floor, and it's kind of empty. People start strolling in. The grain market opens at 9:30. By 9:30, all these pits are packed. 9:30, this bell rings. All of a sudden, there's people screaming at each other, yelling, pushing. I don't know what's going on. They seem to make sense of it. I thought it was chaos, but all I know is I loved it. I wanted to somehow get involved. So he introduced me to a few people after that. A guy by the name of Mark who ran O'Connor & Company, a small family firm, the grain desk. He said, yeah, I'll hire you. So I came down a week later. I got my own little jacket. I got my badge. I got fingerprinted. And I got my first paycheck, and I made $7.50 an hour. I was making minimum wage with a degree in biomedical engineering. To say the least, my parents were very proud of that. So, well, I stuck with it. Mark realized that I probably was a little overeducated to be a runner. They threw me in the pit. I took orders. They would, hey, buy 100 corn, do this. Then I moved onto the desk. And onto the desk, I finally got on the phone. I got to talk to clients. So at this point, I said, you know what, maybe I can make something of this career. So I really started learning the futures markets. I got books. I tried to understand how these things work, how derivatives work. I understood the grain market. So my first bullet up here is never stop learning. So you guys are coming on what's probably been at least 16 years of school. And you spent learning like, hey, I'm going to get a job and get paid. I don't have to learn anything else. Well, I'm going to change that. You guys got to continue to learn and never stop learning. I think it's super important for you guys to continue to read books, read John's blog, whatever market you get into, continue to learn. I look at my jobs that once I stop learning in my job, it's time to find a new job. I always want to keep challenging myself. So from there, I moved upstairs and worked with a corporate hedge group and learned more about the grain markets. I worked for a guy, and I knew how corn got from a farmer in middle of Illinois all the way to China. They ship it to the elevator goes to the river, it goes down the Mississippi, gets on a barge, it goes all the way across the world. I learned all about this stuff. I thought it was very interesting. One thing he did is he said to me, he goes, every Friday, I want you to ask me 5 questions about the market. I was like, okay, I guess. So it brings me my bullet about asking questions. So when you get into a job, I think you got to ask questions for a couple different reasons. A, you got to find out, okay, what do I do? How do I do my job, right? Show me what I need to do. You got to ask questions to continue to develop yourself. But I think really most importantly, or I like is important, is you got to ask why you do certain things, right? You get into that first job and they tell you, okay, you're going to go on the computer, you're going to create this Excel file, and then you're going to send it off to Bob over in the accounting department. Why am I doing that? Well, by you challenging and asking that question, It allows you to think about, how can I make that better? How can I do it differently? How can I make it more efficient, right? So, we always got to continue to ask questions. Because one of my pet peeves is when I go to someone and say, hey, why do you do that? I don't know, that guy over there told me that's what we do. If you're going to do something, own it. So from there, I realized, I wasn't cut out to be in that role forever. So I went back and I got my master's in accounting at DePaul down the street. I did that. I did an internship at KPMG. I got a full-time offer to become an auditor. It's like, okay, this is my next career step. Well, the CFO, who actually a good friend of Donnie's, came to me and said, we want you to come back to the firm. We understand, I know you want to get into the finance area. I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? He said, well, I want you to move around different departments and learn different things, and then somehow we'll get you back to finance. So I accepted that. I came back, and he said, okay, you're going to work in the securities borrow and lending group. I said, excuse me? What is that, borrow and lending securities? I had no idea, right? So I did that and learned that. And at that time, we gotten bought out. We were a small family firm. We got bought out by a company called Fortis, who was a bank at that time. And, we became a little bit more structured, a little bit more, streamlined there. So with that, we had to set goals, and we had to fill out our performance plans every year. In the family company, we never did that. It was, hey, you're doing a great job. Here's your bonus. Great. So my next thing is about setting goals. I think it's super important for people to set goals, whether it's on your personal life or whether it's at work. I think you want to look at setting some short-term goals and long-term goals. To me, there's three keys of setting goals, is that you got to write your goals down. It doesn't do any good if they're up here. They're not real. You got to look at them all the time. And you also, I think, you got to share them with somebody. So your work goals you should be sharing with your manager, HR. Your personal goals you share with somebody, because to me, when you do these three things, it makes them, more, you have some accountability for that, and I think it actually helps you to get these goals accomplished. So, after that, I moved into the operations side of the business, and I ran stock operations and learned all about, stock market, dark pools, clearing, reconciliations of trades, corporate actions, stuff I had no idea about, but good experience. But my next step was my boss, the COO, left. So I applied for the job and said, I'm ready for this. Unfortunately, my CEO didn't think that was the case. He said, they brought someone else in. So it was the first time that I really didn't get a job that I tried for. So I went into the CEO's office, and I asked him, I said, what didn't I do right? He said, well, I think there's some things you need to work on. I think there's some things you can develop, and you just need some time. So even more powerful than that, he said, what I'll do is I'll mentor you. I'll help you through this and get you to that next step. So that's my last bullet, is to find a mentor. I think it's something that I didn't have until late into my career, and I think you guys should all get mentors. I think you should have really multiple mentors. It's good to have a mentor outside of work that knows nothing about what you do in work and how your work happens. And you need someone inside of work that's not your manager or in your direct line that you can go to. A mentor you can confide in, you can bounce ideas off of, you can learn from their experiences, right? They're a senior person. They're just there for you and help you build your career. So overall, I hope these things really do help you as they helped me, because I did end up where my boss promised me back in the day, and 2 years ago I did become the CFO and ended up in the finance area. This has been my most challenging but rewarding role over the last 2.5 years. So hopefully in the end, these 4 things can help you guys as you start your career. I think, now that with ABN and, we have our HR director here today, we've really been focusing on building internships and hiring more young people. What's really I've seen is that, you guys, and you may not think it, from day one, you can really make a difference in the firm. I look at, our new hires, and they come in with a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions, and they challenge with a lot of energy. And that's something that every firm needs. And knowing that you can do that, I recommend you guys go in there and challenge everything and make a difference from day one. So to conclude, I wish you guys good luck as you finish your college career here. Also wish you luck in the job market whenever that happens. So congrats.
We read dozens of news sources, so you only have to read one. John Lothian News.